Okay, so in this video, I'm going to talk about guidelines. The main difference between guidelines and rules is that they happen sometimes. They don't always show up, but it's a good idea to have them in mind because they apparently are zones or something that may happen. For example, a leading diagonal at wave 1. That's a guideline. Sometimes you get a leading diagonal where wave 1, 2, 3, 4 overlaps 1 and 5 makes a diagonal shape ABC and then goes up. But sometimes it doesn't do that. It just goes like this doesn't overlap, but it's still 5-wave sequence. So leading diagonal at wave 1 is one of the guidelines. Another guideline is that wave 2 usually returns at 618, but that doesn't mean that it's gonna touch it perfectly, but sometimes it does and then goes away. Sometimes it just comes back to the 382, or it may go here to the 786. That's another guideline. And then we have another thing such as alternation, which is very important. That wave 2 has to be different to wave 4. They alternate. If you get here a flat, you cannot have a flat here again. Another guideline is that wave 4 usually returns to the 382 of wave 3. That doesn't happen always, but it's something that may show up. Then we also have the subwave, the extensions. We have 5 subwaves inside a wave, but that may happen in wave 1, wave 3, or wave 5, only one of them. It doesn't always happen, but it's something that may show up. And also the ending diagonal may show up at the end of a trend. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So let's continue. But before we move on, let's remember the 3 basic rules. And the most important is the first one. Corrective wave never returns 100%. Here we have the rule of alternation, which means that wave 2 is going to be different than wave 4 structure in form, in time, and price. If this took 1 day, this may take 4 days. If this took 1 hour, this may take 8 hours. And also, if this is a zigzag, this can be a flat or a triangle, as you can see here. If this is a flat, then this is a zigzag or a triangle, as you can see. But it cannot be a flat and a flat unless it's happening in different cycles, like a big N and then a smaller one. That's a different case. The main idea is that you get something different in shapes, time, and price. If you get a running flat, for example, you're not going to get here another flat, but a zigzag or a triangle. And this is really important because alternation works also inside W, X, Y, and the triple combination pattern that we are going to see in another video. But it's also important to see that you cannot find two of them together. It has to alternate. About extension of wave, only one of them can be extended. But remember that wave 3 cannot be the shortest. So we can have, for example, 1, 2, and then 5 subwave, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, and 5. This whole sequence makes wave 3, and this is the most common. Another way that we can get these extensions is the fifth wave to be extended. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, making the 5, and this is how you label it. You use a different kind of typography so that you can scale up, scale down. And also we can get a first wave extended. That means that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, make it the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes you may see this such as a leading diagonal, but that I don't think it's considered extended. And here's one of the most important things about guidelines is how do we use them for corrective wave? How do we confirm a corrective wave is actually a corrective wave? And let's remember the flats are 3, 3, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? We're going to talk about this later. But right now, the only thing that you need to know is that it's 3 movements contained within a parallel channel bouncing twice at 3, 8, 2, confirm when it bounces after C. Especially if you see an ending diagonal here or a bullish pattern such as a candlestick formation with a long wick. That usually happens at wave C. This is a regular flat. As you can see, it's horizontal. We can also get expanded flat, and we can confirm it by using wave A measurement. wave B is gonna go back to these levels of Fibonacci, the 272, and wave C the same, but the other side, 1.272. It's always 1, 2, and 3, and then it goes up again, making a new height, and it's contained within a parallel channel using the wave 4 of wave C. But the main idea here is that you get the wave A measured, so that you can see where B is going and where C is gonna bounce. You don't open a trade here, you wait for it to bounce, and you get inside when it crosses the middle of this channel. Or if you see a candlestick formation happening here at the wave C. And the running flat, as you can see here, is one moving up, A, B, C, and then it goes to the upside, making a new height. But the special thing about the running flats is that B goes above your impulse. Then A, B, and C is going to end above A, and usually it happens one ladder up. That means that if you measure your impulsive to your wave B, wave A is going to stop at 618 and C is going to stop at 382. About zigzags, we have the regular zigzag that's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and as you can see, B usually is corrective. That means that you can see a triangle here, A, B, C, D, E, and then goes down 5 times and then goes up, and here you have a triangle. You can also have here a flat or a zigzag, as you can see here. But the main idea here is also that it's contained within a parallel channel to find C at a certain level of the 618. This is a regular and a common zigzag that returns to 618 to make a new high. We also can get a truncated zigzag that looks like this: 1, 2, and 3. And 3 is shorter than A. It almost looks like a double bounce. You can see divergence here, higher lows, lower lows, and then the price bounce in the middle of the channel. In this area of the 618, as you can see, it can return to 382, the wave A, but it also can go back to the 618 and double bounce there. The main idea here is that you see a breakout before you actually open a trade, because this can continue down and maybe even make a new low if you're wrong. So always watch for a breakout, always look for a confirmation on the wave C, a candlestick formation, or a hard bounce, or a breakout from trend lines. And then we have this 10x zigzag that may go even to deeper levels such as 786 or even at the 886. This is the deepest level a wave can retrace. If it goes below, that's very dangerous between this zone. The main idea again is to wait for the bounce, and then you get in and stop loss here. It's the same, 1, 2, and 3 contained within a parallel channel, 5, 3, 5, and then it usually does another corrective pattern above this trend line. But the main idea here is that you see that you have 3 types of zigzags: the regular one, the truncated, and the extended that goes to deeper levels. Triangles are really important because they can tell us if the trend is going to turn around. They are pre-terminal movements, and they go usually at the 382 level of last impulse, and it goes like this: impulse A, B, C, D, E, and they usually return to the 786 or the 618 from previous wave. That means that this distance is going to return to this level. This distance is going to return to this level, and this distance is going to return to this level, and so on and so on. And remember, the wave E is special because it can get truncated. That means that it didn't reach this trend line here, and also it can get overflow, making a double bottom and breaking this trend line just to turn around. How do you trade overflows? The same thing as the other things, is just wait for the bounce. Once it gets inside this structure, you know it's gonna go up. But if it's a small triangle of a smaller cycle, don't trade the triangle. Wait for it to go to trust 5 waves movements, and then it's going to turn around. We also have different kinds of triangles, and we can measure them with Fibonacci. For example, in the expanded triangle, each wave is gonna go farther. How do we find them? Usually they go to the 1272 or 0272, the extensions of the last wave. For example, this is your wave A, and then extend B is going to come here, and the wave C is going to come here, B and C, and then you measure B to C, and you can find your wave D at this level and wave E at this level. and it goes like impulse A, B, C, D, E, and then comes and make a new high. Just remember that this is not going to go away, it's going to turn around. We also have the barrier triangle, that we have an horizontal side of the triangle, and the price goes like this: A, B, C, D, E. It cannot go lower than this level, and then makes a new high. We can measure this by using wave A to find wave B, the 618 or 786. Then we use B to C to find wave D at the 618, at the 786 or 618. It's really complicated to find these levels, but once you can see these two getting stopping here, you know that wave E is going to stop here. It also can be truncated or overflow. And lastly, the running triangle, it's very peculiar because wave B stops above your impulse. It goes like impulse A, B, C, D, E, and then makes a new high. How do you find a wave? It's the same. You measure A to B, and 618, 786 returns for wave B. You measure wave B to wave Z, and you find wave D at 786, 618, and the same goes for E. Remember, the wave E can be truncated, which means it doesn't touch this trend line and goes away. Or it goes down, making an overflow, and comes back up. We also have impulsive wave guidelines of where it's going to stop. The extensions, for example, wave 1 usually returns to the 618. Not always, but that depends on the pattern. But it usually does. When it's the wave 1, for example, it comes for the bearish trend, and you have an ending diagonal here, and then the price is going to make the first movements 1, 2, and then it goes. This wave 2 usually returns to the 618. Then the target for wave 3 usually is the 618 or 2 from the distance of 1. That means it's a double the size, or a little less, 618. This is not exact. It could be a little lower, it could be a little higher, but just to get you an idea of how long the wave 3 should be. The main idea here is that we break above this parallel channel, and it's going to return to bounce on the top of it, and this is our wave 4. That usually returns to the 382 from wave 3. And then we can find targets for wave 5, and that depends on the distance of wave 3, but usually it's the distance of from wave 1 to 618, 3618, or 4618. We can also measure the wave 3 and find these same levels for getting a target for wave 5. Also, we can use a parallel channel here and see when it's going to go here at the stop of this channel. After we get 5 waves, we know that we're going to get a bigger ABC that usually returns to previous wave 4. That is not a rule. Sometimes it does, sometimes it goes a little farther than it, sometimes a little lower, but that's an area of interest where the price is gonna go back. And what about diagonals? We have also some guidelines for diagonals. In the case of ending diagonal, we can see the wave 2 retraces 618 or 786 from wave 1, and they go like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can also see that wave 4 returns to 618 of wave 3, and wave 5 can be overflow or truncated, not reaching this trend line. You can also see another smaller ending diagonal happening right here near this trend line. They usually return at least 3 movements, doing an ABC below this structure, and the first target usually is around this area of the wave 2. And leading diagonals, we cannot see it truncated, and it usually overflows. That means that it goes sharp and then goes back down to this area of 618, 786. It's followed by a sharp ABC. So it's common to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then apparently it comes to the initial part of this leading diagonal, but it never returns 100%. So we can see an ABC, sharp zigzag, and then goes up, make a new high. And this is the confirmation of a leading diagonal if it makes a new high. They both do 3 movements down, but remember the ending diagonal looks slow. Leading diagonal are a little more steep and a little more faster. You can also see 5-wave sequences in wave 1 and wave 3. And you can see, for example, impulse, flat, impulse, zigzag, impulse, and it goes really fast. When you spot them in the market, you're going to see the difference between them. And one of the things that I like the most is that it takes less time and it's more sharp when you see a leading diagonal. Ending diagonals are usually slower, they take more time, and you can spot E having this weird behavior sometimes. And that's it about guidelines. I wanted to make it simple, don't stress too much with so many rules. I know outside there are so many things that people say that's always going to happen. That's not true. Sometimes it may be. That's the main idea about guidelines. Sometimes they happen, sometimes they doesn't. But it's a good idea to have them in mind when you spot them. But it's best to just follow along the 3 basic rules and play along with them and don't stress too much about other guidelines. But it's good to have them in mind. Don't stress too much with all the guidelines that you can find out there. Keep it simple, it's best that way. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you learn about the guidelines and how can they help you find these key zones where the price is gonna revert, or your targets where you wanna get out. Okay, and that's it for this video, and see you in the next video.